Good evening, everyone. We'd like to start the program now. Hopefully everyone is enjoying some nice food provided by Whole Foods for tonight's event. I am Public Safety Commissioner Robert McCoy, and next to me is our chair, Andy Wong.
Good evening. 大家好，晚安. Thank you for coming.
We also have Commissioner Yvonne Chow.
Please stand up.
Yeah. And we have Commissioner Hymanad Nalor.
Also our Assistant City
Our
Manager.
wonderful Assistant or Deputy City Manager, Jackie Guzman, who is our staff and our angel. So thank you. Hopefully everyone's ready for some nice education tonight, maybe learn something new. And it's my pleasure to introduce Lieutenant Mark Roja. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Excuse me. I would like to introduce our Honorable Mayor, Darcy Paul.
So sorry. I just want to make sure everyone got their giveaway, the whistle and the LED, and if you haven't received them, please see the Miss Isabel, the lady in the green, please wave, so she'll give you the handout if you haven't got one, okay? And once you get it, make sure if the LED doesn't light up, because there's a safety plastic paper. You have to pull out the safety pin. Once you pull out the safety pin, the battery is connected, okay? So my apologies.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Okay, thanks Rob, thanks Andy. And I want to start by thanking the members of our Public Safety Commission for putting this event together. Rob McCoy, Andy Wong, Hymanad Nalor, Yvonne Chow are here this evening, and they've been very consistent about making sure that we're effectively outreaching to our community. And so to that extent, I thank the members of the community that are here as well this evening. We tried to make sure that we're televising the event this year as well, because of course there's a lot of great information that's conveyed here. And so I'd like to thank our staff for working overtime tonight. It was a bit late in the notification process to ask for that backup and support, but they were able to turn that over very quickly. So going a bit down the list of essentially thank yous, I'd like to say thanks to the County Sheriff's Office for doing such a wonderful job with the public safety aspects of the patrolling. That's all week during the weekends as well and the evenings. And we have Lieutenant Mark Roja here to give an update for County Sheriff today. We also have in Cupertino a set of code enforcement officers that work during the week, and so we're very grateful to have those 6.5 employees, being able to provide that support service. In Cupertino, we do an excellent job of being able to be quite fiscally responsible, and so we contract out our public safety services to the degree of the Sheriff's Office as well as County Fire. And so with regard to County Fire, we're very grateful that they have a presence here today as well and are giving a talk. We're constantly looking in the public safety realm to try to refine what kind of services that we can be bringing forth and how we consider the various types of ways that we think about the policy. And these are things that aren't set in stone. They're always kind of evolving with the community itself as well. You can see it from the state level. Recently we had, I believe it was Proposition 47, not too long ago, a few years ago, that considered the setup of how various crimes are classified in the state, and that has repercussions. And it's precisely these types of events that can contribute our voice in terms of, if we want to look at how these things are affecting our communities vis-a-vis the policy goals that are set by these types of implementations, these are the types of forums where it's good to start interfacing and saying, okay, we respect various goals of the policy, but perhaps there are some refinements that we can be making. So we really thank you. This is not one of those super controversial items in Cupertino right now, and yet we have a good turnout. And we're able to bring forth these types of discussions in a manner that is is level-headed and really considers all the various factors out there. We have members of our CERT team, as well as our head of our Office of Emergency Services, Clara here this evening. So thank you very much for everything that you bring to the community. One thing I do want to say is that it is extremely important when we're talking about public safety issues to connect with our neighbors. They're essentially our first line of defense in being able to protect each other. And to that end, we have done a very good job in the past of building up a neighborhood program, the Community Block Leader Program, that's led on our staff by Laura DeMondon Lee, who's also here this evening. And so if you're thinking about getting more involved, the Community Block Leader Program is an excellent way to help coordinate your communities, and you've probably been to a block party in the last several years in your neighborhood. And if you haven't, then perhaps that's because there's a bit of a gap in coverage, and so please think about joining that program as well. So in terms of being able to say that things are really good in terms of crime rates, that is true, but we do hear things related to neighborhood concerns. I think that we'll hear a lot of updates from our sheriff's office, and we do have members of our community organizations that are here tonight as well to speak. One that I've been involved with in the past, but I didn't invite, is tonight, but is here, is the Asian Americans for Community Involvement, or AKI. And we have Veronica Trong here to speak to domestic violence issues and other types of support services that can be available. But it's an exemplar. It's an exemplar of the various types of issues and support facilities that are out there in the community. I see Stuart Chesson, who is heavily involved in the American Red Cross, and really appreciate all the efforts pretty much right across the board. We have the formal services, we have the community organizations, we have the various infrastructural mechanisms within the community. And so thank you very much, everyone, for making it out here. We also have a member of our teen commission here this evening to talk about public safety through the lens of making sure that people aren't necessarily doing things like texting while driving and being generally distracted. So it's great to see our teens get involved because, of course, they're the foundation of what our community is really going to be operating on with respect to all of our critical functions in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years. So thanks very much for making it out. Again, if you care to engage and you happen to be seeing this in real time, we have some space available here, and I know that County Fire has brought out some brand new equipment and vehicles. It'd be great to be able to explore those. Those are available to take a look at right on Torrey Avenue over there. So really looking forward to all of the great talks that we'll hear this evening from the various aspects of public safety in Cupertino. So thanks very much.
Wow, it's so nice that we have the support we do from council and city staff. It's amazing. It allows us to get a lot of things accomplished here. Next, I'd like to introduce our wonderful Lieutenant Mark Roja to talk to you about trending crimes here in the city.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Lieutenant Mark Roja with the Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about 15 years now. I last was here in Cupertino about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe, as a detective sergeant. I was gave the same talk in 2012, 2014. In 2014 and 2015, when we start getting into the numbers, those were tough times. There was a lot of crime. There was a lot more crime in those years than there is now. And I hear all the time, man, crime is up. What's going on? Crime is up. That's all I hear about is crime. That's all we hear about, because I think we're with social media and other aspects, we're hearing about it a lot. And that's all you hear when you get on Nextdoor and you get on Facebook, and you talk to your neighbors, and their houses are getting broken into, their cars are getting broken into. Well, I think part of that now is we're aware of it. As when we get into the numbers, it was happening in 2014, and it was happening in 2015. It was happening quite a bit more. But we're aware of it now, which is a good thing. And I think that is one of the major reasons that we're in a downward trend of these residential burglaries and these vehicle burglaries. For the most part today, what we're going to be talking about is property crimes, okay, because that's one of the bigger problems that we're seeing in Cupertino. Cupertino is a very safe city to live in. As far as shootings, stabbings, rapes, assaults with a deadly weapon, it doesn't happen, hardly ever. You don't see it like you do in other cities. We do have a problem with vehicle burglaries. We do have a problem with residential burglaries. I'm not going to stand up here and say that it's not a problem, because it is happening. Okay? People from out of town come here because of the area. People know there's some money in Cupertino, so we're a target, and because of that, we have to be aware and we have to be together. I think one of the main reasons why these numbers have gone down, besides my work as a detective sergeant back in 2016, which was pretty effective, obviously, is the work of the Neighborhood Watch with Stephanie and Laura and their crew, getting neighbors together. What we're seeing is a lot more people call 911. A lot more people know their neighbors because of these groups. The unity, and people realized there was a problem, and we couldn't figure this out by ourselves. So those projects and those groups are doing great work. So what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to get into some crime statistics. We're going to talk about patterns, what we see as far as the time of day, what types of crimes are happening, where they're happening, who's doing it. We know all this stuff. We have a good idea. And then more importantly, what we're doing about it, because that's what everybody wants to know. What are you guys doing about it? Why are we paying you this money? And yet we still have residential burglaries. So we'll talk about what we're doing about it. The other items that people were interested in is to talk about phone scams, because they are still around, and I'll get into that. Those annoying calls that you get 3 or 4 times a day that hopefully most people are just sending right to voicemail by now. But they still happen. And then we'll talk about bicycle thefts, because it is still a problem, and that was something that they wanted addressed. So let's get right into it. 2017 and 2018 crime totals. What we see is, for the most part, as you see, the yellows are 2018 and the green is 2017. 2017 was a lot lower than 2016 and 2015, and there's another slide that'll get into that. But we are about on pace, and the 2018 totals are year to date. So we're almost to the end of October. We're going to have November and December. We might match some of these numbers, especially vehicle burglaries. I think we'll probably match vehicle burglaries the same as 2017. As you can see, there's nothing overwhelmingly more than 2017, and once we get into like the other years, like I said, it'll be quite a bit less. So you start to wonder, why am I hearing about it more? I think it's like you talked about, we're just more aware of it. It's getting broadcasted more. More people are joining Nextdoor and these other apps, which is great, and people should be aware of it. But as you can see, assaults, robberies, domestic violence, sex crimes, they're all lower. Auto thefts was up this year already, and it's going to be up higher. Something that we're keeping an eye on, and we're putting more resources towards. The big thing that we're going to talk about later, and the one that we're watching the most, is vehicle burglaries. It's starting to become a big problem in Cupertino. Specifically, we'll get into the locations, but specifically in our commercial areas. Not so much in the residences, but in the shopping centers. They're getting 5 or 10 cars at a time, and they're doing it pretty quickly. So we'll talk about that. Here's our crime index and what happened from 17 to 18. Some of these numbers, like I said, are through the year, so some of these numbers are going to be similar. You never really can predict too much as far as what happens in November and December. Generally, the vehicle burglaries will go up because of the holiday season. The crooks know that there's shopping bags, that people are shopping, so they'll go and hit the shopping centers. So I imagine that vehicle burglary by the end of the year will be up. I think the residential burglaries will probably be about the same as 2017. But there's some numbers, the grand thefts, the robberies. So the difference between a robbery and a burglary, for those of you that don't know, a robbery is a person crime, meaning if I go up to Jackie in the front here and I take her purse right from her and she's holding on to it and I grab it and I run off, that's a robbery. Whereas if Jackie's in here and I go out to her car and I break into her car, that's a burglary. I didn't take it from her immediate presence. Robberies are the violent crimes, considered a violent crime. So as you can see, robberies from 21 last year to 9 this year, that's a significant decrease that I think definitely a good thing. And you'll get a chance at the end if you have specific questions on any of these, you can ask, definitely. Like I talked about, 2014 and 2015, those were rough years. Right, like the mayor said, right after Prop 47, Prop 57, we saw an increase in some of these crimes, especially property crimes. There's a lot of theories about the correlation between those propositions and the increase in crime. People would say, well, why is it going back down now? Well, I think it's going back down now is because we're combating it better. I think there obviously was a significant rise in 2015. We were talking about, that's residential burglaries in the city of Cupertino alone, 212 in 2015. If you look at that to 2016, 172, and then down to 144, and so far this year, 94. I believe that's definitely a good thing. It's going down. And like I said, we could talk about the variety of different reasons why. I really think it's about this partnership that we have with the community and the way that we're working together. And we're just focusing more on it. We're starting to figure out what the tricks of the trade are. We have guys that are specifically tasked with figuring out who these guys are, where they're coming from. We're going out of county quite often. I'll introduce a couple of deputies in a minute, and they're spending a lot of time out of county and visiting East Palo Alto and some of our crooks in Hayward. And they're going there and they're finding stuff from our area that these guys will come down and they'll steal Cupertino residents' property, and we'll figure out who they are, and we'll go up there and we'll get the stuff back. So we're figuring out a lot about who these guys are. As far as patterns go, days of the week, as you can see, the bad guys take the weekends off. Maybe family time, maybe just spending our money that they steal from us. But Friday is a big day for residential burglaries. You can ask why. I don't think we have a solid answer why, but the fact that we do know that more of this happens on Fridays has definitely helped us. The last couple of Fridays we've had additional people out, patrol deputies out. We know what time they're hitting. We know what locations they're hitting. We've gotten lucky a few times. Catching these guys in the act is pretty difficult. It's not like, well, I have a house alarm. Why didn't you catch him? A house alarm is going to help deter it. But unfortunately, by the time your house alarm goes off and we get there, even if it's 4 or 5 minutes, these bad guys can be in and out. It doesn't take long to get in your house, take your stuff, and leave. So the way we catch them is either we'll catch them with fingerprints after the fact. We'll be Johnny on the spot and get there in a minute. We see them driving around town and pull them over for something else, and then they have your property in it. A neighbor calls. This is a big one. A neighbor calls and says, hey, that vehicle doesn't belong at my neighbor's house. We'll catch them that way. That's one of the best ways. But other than that, it's difficult. Catching people breaking into cars is even more difficult. Because at least in the house, they can, got to park out front and there's neighbors. But you can go in some of these shopping complexes in the dark. You could break a couple windows, or what they do is just find an open and unlocked door. And it's simple. Very simple, and they can get 3 or 4 cars in 10 minutes. You can leave in with 3 or 4 laptops. We see most of this residential burglary during the day. I think everybody thinks, oh, they're going to break into my house at night. Realistically, it's going to happen during the day while you're at work. What we see is a lot of these bad guys, they'll travel in groups of anywhere from 2 to 4 people. One person they'll park a vehicle, more than likely with either paper plates or stolen plates. Paper plates meaning like from a dealership. They'll leave that on so no one gets their license plate number. They'll park a car maybe 2 or 3 doors down from a house they want to burglarize. And who knows why they pick it. You can ask, maybe they may have some information, right? Maybe they painted the interior of your house. Maybe somebody knows your son. Who knows what it is? They'll pick a house. Maybe it's just the house they want, the house they like. Maybe it's just there. They'll park a couple doors down. Somebody will wait in the car. 1 or 2 of the subjects will go up to the front door. What we're seeing and what we get a lot of is they knock on the front door. If somebody answers, they're going to come up with a bogus story like, hey, have you seen my kitten, or something, right? So if you have a guy in all face tats and he's missing his kitten, face tattoos and missing a kitten, please call us. That's suspicious. Or they'll say, hey, how do I get to Highway 85? Or, I'm looking for, Saratoga Avenue. You're on Deanza and Mariani. You're a little far off. That's what they'll do. They'll come up with a fake question right off the bat. If you're not there, or if you don't answer, what they'll do is they'll either hop over your side gate, or if a lot of times these side gates are unlocked, they'll get into your back door and they'll either find an open unlocked window, unlocked door, or they'll kick in a back door either to the garage or to a back slider, and they'll get an entry through that way. Generally, they're in there from anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes is what we found. They're in and out. They're looking for jewelry, cash, electronics, and they'll put it all in a pillowcase or something that you have, and then they'll be gone, sometimes out the front door. And they're pretty brazen. They might go a few blocks down, and they'll do another one. And then, we'll get there. We'll start figuring out what the car is. We start looking for it, and we might get lucky finding the car. But that's generally the way it works. We're seeing a lot of it during the day. One thing to keep in mind, that's a horrible story, right? You can just picture a house, picture you home when that happens, is for the most part, we found these suspects to be non-confrontational, meaning if you answer the door, they're going to go away. Say you don't answer the door and they kick in your back door, what we've seen them do is just run away. They get scared. Very rarely is there any sort of physical altercation when being encountered. For the majority of the time, we're talking about juveniles, we're talking about kids, that are young adults, and when they get confronted, they run. So, I would say I hope that makes you feel better. I don't want to see anybody in my house at all, but the fact that they'll more than likely run when they see you puts me a little bit at ease. Method of entry. Like I said, 41% are forced, kicked, pried door or window open. So that's a large portion. But if you look at the two other ones down at the bottom, the 21% for an open unlocked door and a 19% for open unlocked window, that's 40% of the way they're getting in is unlocked open doors. It's tough because how many times can we tell each other? How many times can you put it out on our Facebook or next door? Or how many times can you, I don't know how many times I told my wife, right? Close the windows. And think, I'll get home tonight and I guarantee you the window's open, right? It's a cool night. But it's tough, but you really have to be vigilant, especially when you leave, to close and lock your windows. One of that's not really on here, but one of the new methods we're finding is these bad guys are going and checking vehicle doors outside. So you have your car parked in your driveway. They'll get in and either they'll break a window or more than likely they're getting in it being unlocked. And then a lot of people still are keeping their garage door openers in their cars. Either that or they'll have, we've seen even the key fobs to the cars with the remote starts. So they'll steal your car, they'll get into your house. So it's a good tip to remember to take out that garage door opener out of your vehicles. Vehicle burglaries. This is the big one. This is the one that we're working on right now. As you can see, 2018 is going to be probably a 5-year high. We're at 270 right now. We're at 298 last year. If you look on the news, you could tell it's more than just Cupertino, right? It's a region-wide problem. The city of San Francisco, other areas, it's a mess. This problem is a mess. And I know what you're thinking. This is Cupertino. This isn't the city of San Francisco. We should be better than this. And I agree. And it's something that if you talk to the other agencies, local agencies, you see what's happening in Willow Glen and some of these other areas that's happening to us in Saratoga, Los Altos Hills. It's a problem. So what are we doing about it? We're going to get into that in a second. But let me finish this trend. What we're seeing with the vehicle burglaries is, once again, primarily during the week. Weird that vehicle burglaries are happening more on Mondays and residentials are happening more on Fridays. It's kind of strange. Maybe they take the weekend off and they feel feisty, and Monday they're ready to get at it. They don't have a case of the Mondays, I guess. I don't know. But as you can see with the average even per month, from 2016 on to 2018, it's gone up. I think a lot of these burglars are getting away from getting into houses, and they find it easier to break into cars. Commercial hotspots. What we're seeing, like I said, is these vehicle burglaries aren't really happening in the residential areas. They're not going to go into your driveway. I'm not saying it never happens, because it does happen. They're not going to go on the residential streets. It's happening in our large shopping centers. And that's where we're seeing the majority of them. And if you look down at the bottom, it's happening a lot during the evening when people are out to dinner. I think it's well known we have one of the more larger corporations in our jurisdiction. Apple draws a lot of people, a lot of employees. A lot of Apple employees have those fancy MacBooks and all the laptops. They get a lot of people in from out of town. I can say that a lot of these vehicle burglaries are out of town people in rental cars. I think the crooks are targeting a lot of the rental cars because they know there's luggage in there, there's laptops. So we're seeing a lot of vehicle burglaries in these commercial areas in the evening time. That's a map of the vehicle burglaries. As you can see, primarily focused in those commercial areas, not so much in the residential areas, but the majority of them happening in and around those shopping centers. So we talked about where it's happening, when it's happening, kind of get into a little bit of who's doing it, right? Who are these people that you're catching? One of the bigger problems that we're having right now is that a lot of the suspects that we catch are juveniles. It's amazing how young these kids are getting. It's sad, right? I mean, 12, 11, 13, 14, stolen cars, breaking into houses with guns on them. I believe in the last, this wasn't on there, I just thought of this when we were talking outside, is in the last 2 weeks alone, we've arrested in Cupertino on 3 different occasions is kids with guns. And that's just in Cupertino alone. Now these kids aren't doing robberies or anything. They're driving around, but they have guns. It's very scary as far as from our standpoint. What we see is, these stats come from the district attorney's, the Santa Clara County DA's crime strategies unit, is that in almost every category of these big crime topics, residential burglaries, robberies, that there is a tremendous amount of juvenile offense that they're going to reoffend, and that they're going to offend in the first place. When we were talking about from 2016, in 2016, there was 81 juveniles charged for residential burglary, and then back in 2017, there's 185. That's a humongous change. It's difficult when we arrest a group of juveniles for breaking in your house, and then the next day that you see them and they're out again. I can't say that there's one way to fix this problem. I can tell you that I think the juvenile criminal justice system is focused on rehabilitation, which is a good thing, right? We can't give up on these kids rather than incarceration. So they let them out. So there's got to be some sort of a medium. But in the meantime, that's what we're finding is a lot of these crimes are being committed by young kids, and the majority of them are from out of the area. So what are we doing about it, gentlemen? You guys want to come up? We created, back in early 2017, a burglary and theft suppression, the BATS team. These 2 gentlemen here are part of the BATS team. They're comprised of plainclothes deputies. They drive an unmarked police car. I think right now they have a cool-looking minivan. We're not going to tell you what it looks like too much in case the bad guys are watching. What they do is they patrol the hot spots in Cupertino. We did find the 2 most handsome deputies, too, to do it. Deputy Rebellin, you want to talk?
Good evening. Deputy Ken Rebellini, this is Deputy Marcus Barber. We're both part of our burglary and theft suppression team. So like Lieutenant Roja was saying, our main function is to go out and simply suppress theft. Be out there when nobody can see us. We're not in marked vehicles, so hopefully we have a little bit of an element of surprise We like to sneak up on people that are committing thefts and you know, hold them accountable, right? A lot of theft that occurs in the city of Cupertino, Saratoga, other places like that, most people don't have to answer for because it happens so quickly. No one sees anything, and you know, we have to do all this investigating to try to figure out who it is and prosecute them and things like that. But as far as bats goes, they originally put all of us together, the two of us together, to go out and kind of actively combat that, as opposed to being reactionary, be proactive. So that's our primary function. As far as that goes, I mean, we enjoy it. It's awesome. We get to go out and you know, we make a lot of arrests. So you want to say something?
So I'll talk about the current trend with the vehicle burglary, since that's a hot topic now in Cupertino. Basically what we're seeing in our shopping centers is we get a lot of crews, as the lieutenant said. Guys are coming from the East Bay. They're not typically from Santa Clara County. They're coming from Alameda County, San Mateo. We have guys come in as far as Contra Costa County. They're driving high-end cars, Porsches, Mercedes, BMWs. They typically put stolen plates on their cars or paper plates on their car. It happens very quick. It's a crime of opportunity. What they're doing is they get out, they cover their faces, typically with hooded sweatshirts, and they pull these strings down so that you can barely see their face. And in a matter of seconds, they've broken into 2 or 3 cars. So one of the biggest recommendations that I can make for any of the residents here in Cupertino, or anybody that comes here into town to dine in any of our shopping centers, is to not only not leave your belongings in your cars, such as, you know, wallets, purses, cell phones, any electronic devices like computers, tablets, and things of that nature, because that's what the guys are looking for. And basically what they do is they're selling the property. What we're doing to combat that is we're in the parking lots in the evening while you guys are having dinner. It's just 2 of us. So what we do is we work with other agencies, like the lieutenant was saying. It's not just the sheriff's office that's having a problem in our West Valley division. It's Mountain View's having a big issue, as well as Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara. So collectively, we're all working together, more so of like a multi-jurisdictional thing to combat the vehicle burglaries. We've worked with San Jose Police Department. They have a burglary prevention unit as well. So over the last couple of weeks, we've had about 10 to 15 officers working in the parking lots to conduct surveillance to prevent these vehicle burglaries from occurring. It has worked. It is working. So we're going to continue to do that. As far as the residential burglaries go, that's another crime of opportunity, right? Like the lieutenant touched on. We are identifying these suspects, and they are getting arrested. Just a couple weeks ago, I think it's a notable case to mention. We were able to identify a residential burglary suspect who lived in the city of San Jose, and we went out with our detectives, and we helped with an arrest and search warrant, and we located stolen property from residents in Cupertino, as well as about $200,000 worth of power tools and other stuff at this guy's house. So that's what we're doing as far as the burglary and theft suppression goes. And this goes for the stores, Target, Ulta Beauty, Steinmart, Party City, if you guys shop there. And what we're seeing with Prop 47, right? A lot of the people that have drug addiction problems is that, you know, they need to fill their habits. So one thing they do is that they steal clothes, and they take them to flea markets, and they sell the clothes for money. So that tends to go hand in hand with commercial retail theft as well.
All right, thanks, guys. These guys really have been working their tails off. Both these guys are two of the best. But they're not nearly as cute as the next guy. And I'm talking about Dutch. Dutch, come on up. And then I guess you can bring Deputy Keck with you, Dutch. So one of the other things that we were able to do to combat these problems with the city of Cupertino's help, they were very helpful in purchasing Dutch. Deputy Keck, you want to tell us a little bit about Dutch?
I'll have to stand over here to the side. Forgive me. Try to get closer to the microphone. Come here, buddy. Oh, thank you. This is going to be lots. Good boy. Thank you very much for letting us come out here this evening and show off my partner. My name is Deputy Keck. I'm assigned to West Valley Patrol. I've been out here since January of 2015. And this is my canine partner, Dutch. Dutch is a Dutch Shepherd. A lot of people ask me, oh, he's a German Shepherd mixed with something else. I say, no, he's a Dutch Shepherd. They go, oh, cool, so what's he mixed with? I go, no, his breed is a Dutch Shepherd. So as you can tell, right, he's similar to a German Shepherd, but he's a little bit taller, a little bit slimmer build. He's very similar to a Belgian Malinois. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Malinois, but he has a black face, but he has a black brindle coat. So that's kind of what is very recognizable about a Dutch Shepherd is their coat. They have this black brindle. You can see it, right? It's black and brown. It's all mixed in, and it looks really good. Dutch is about 2.5 years old. He originally came from Europe. And then he went to a breeder in LA, and our canine vendor got him from the breeder in LA. We became partners in about the middle of April. I think it was about April 15th. We started training. We did some bonding time, and then we did some training time all through May. And we've been working on the streets out here in Cupertino and Saratoga and Los Altos, and for all of our West Valley Patrol Division since the beginning of June. Dutch is trained in patrol techniques, which is catching bad guys. So he helps me out with building searches, area searches, tracking, trailing, and then helping me catch bad guys. He's also trained in narcotics. Narcotics detection. He's trained to smell the odors of marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and opium. So he's awesome, right? Everybody loves the dog, right? He has a very friendly personality. A lot of police canines sometimes are very friendly, sometimes they're not as friendly, but he has a very friendly personality. He lives with me at home. A lot of people always ask where do they live at during the time. He lives with me at home. I have 2 other dogs at home. I have an English Bulldog puppy and a Staffordshire Terrier. He gets along great with them. Let's see, what are the other common questions? What language? Very good question. Right? You would think, right? So when I got Dutch, he was actually doing dog sport before this. He was doing ring sport. It's French ring sport. So he knows French. We use German as kind of just for the sheriff's office. We've always kind of used German. And so just to kind of stay uniformed, I've trained him in German, so he can do German or French. Yes, right? Right? In English. You can tell him, hey, come here, and he'll come here, right? What other questions do people have? Everybody always has good questions about the dog. What's up?
Would he allow us to touch him or pet him?
Yeah, he would. Usually when I have people come up and pet him and stuff like that, I just do like 1 or 2 people at a time. Because just like for us, if you're standing up here in a group of people that you never met before, and then 100 people walk up to you, right? It's a little bit nerve-wracking. So yeah, if you want to come over like later and pet him, yeah, that's fine. And that's a good question, right? Anytime you see a dog, and especially a police dog, and say you want to come up and say hi to him, just make sure you ask the handler or the dog owner first. Because sometimes it's okay to come up and do it, and other times it's not a good time to come up and do it. And so it's just safe for you.
So Deputy Keck and Dutch will be hanging out in the back unless something crazy happens in the city. So after we're done, they'll be available to answer any questions. And if you have
one more.
One more?
Say that one more time.
How does she distinguish the bad guys but good people?
So I kind of have to point him in the right direction.
Oh, so you have to.
That's why we're a team, right? For example, let's say, you know, for Cupertino, we're sitting here talking about burglaries, right? Talking about car burglaries versus residential burglaries. Let's say somebody, there's a residential burglar, and we think they're hiding in one of your backyards. So what we'll do is we'll go up and we'll try to talk to the homeowner, right? Let's say it's your house. We would knock on your front door and be like, hey, is there anybody in your backyard? You'd be like, no, there's nobody in my backyard, right? Hey, do you have any pets? Do you have any other animals or anything out there like that, right? And so we would ask you all those questions to make sure that we don't send him on the wrong person. So then once I tell him, hey, go back here and search this backyard, then he knows, hey, I'm back here looking for a person, right? He doesn't say, oh, hey, I'm looking for the guy that's 5'2" wearing a black sweatshirt. Cool. Thank you very much. I know you guys, everybody has questions about the dog. We'll be in the back if you guys have more questions.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so besides the bats guys, Deputy Keck and his partner, what else are we doing? The Santa Clara County has recently started a burglary task force 2 years ago, the district attorney's office, and pretty much every agency in the county are going to monthly meetings. They're doing a lot of information sharing, working together, joint operations, because like I said, this isn't a Cupertino problem, this is a problem we're having all around the county and the state. We're really working on educating and working with local businesses, we're attending community events. There's a crime analyst that's giving us all this great data as far as when this is happening, where it's happening, who's doing it. And then we're putting a lot of our special operations guys on these problems, whereas before they were working on drugs in different areas. A lot of these guys are coming and they're helping in the city of Cupertino a couple nights a week. The last two things, I know we're running out of time, they wanted to talk about scams. We are still seeing the phone scams. People are still falling for them. If the government's not going to ask you for an iTunes card to pay them and anything, but people still go to Target and buy iTunes cards, and they give them to the government to clear up a warrant. The sheriff's office doesn't need any iTunes cards. I mean, we don't accept that. So keep that in mind. Please continue to educate everyone, especially the elderly. You know, they'll call and so-and-so's in jail and we want to bail them out. Double check before you give people your credit card number. The IRS calls, still happening. And then bicycle thefts. It's still a problem in Cupertino, not as big of a problem because there's all these Apple bikes that if these bad guys just want a bike, they can go to Apple and get one. But we do see, especially from the schools and apartment complexes, people are still stealing kids' bikes. So they asked what's the best type of lock to use. Just any type of lock, but it's amazing how many times a bike will get stolen. Did you put the lock on it? No, it's around the handlebars. I have it, but it wasn't on. So just a reminder, we are still seeing bike thefts around. In conclusion, you know, you hear it a million times, lock your doors and windows, turn on those alarms. Yeah, I have an alarm, but it wasn't on. Doesn't really help. Put everything away in a put it in a safe, and just call 911 when in doubt, right? There's the sheriff's office contact information, the non-emergency number. But really, I stress if those little hairs on the back of your neck are standing up and you don't know who's parked in front of your neighbor's house or who's going to your neighbor's backyard, just call 911. It better be safe than sorry. Thank you for letting us have the opportunity to present, and thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Rocha, and please give all our thanks to all the deputies back there. And also, if you haven't got this bag from the sheriff's office before you leave tonight, please feel free. It has all the pertinent information that you need tonight. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, I'll take it. Just close this one. Okay, you can introduce her.
Next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Veronica Trong to speak to you about domestic violence.
Yep. Sorry, I was just doing some technical suppressions. Okay, so now we should have a full screen. So.
Domestic violence. We don't hear those words in our everyday lives. And when we do, we often think of broken bones and bruises. Tonight, at this public safety meeting, we heard a lot about safety, staying safe with your cars, in your home. But the idea that your home could be unsafe because an individual is experiencing intimate partner violence by the person who they love. So today, I want to begin with this video.
What captures my heart about Aki is very simple. It's really about helping people. The core of Aki's work is providing a safety net, providing help and hope to folks who might have nowhere else to turn. We are really proud of the fact that we provide an array of services, from healthcare to a shelter for domestic violence victims, to after-school programs, to a senior center. So if a senior comes to our senior center and they're not feeling well, we can literally walk them to our medical clinic where they can see a doctor who speaks their language. One of the biggest challenges for all of us here at Aki, and the thing that keeps us up at night, is that we see so many folks in our community whose needs are not being met. One of our frustrations is that last year we got 450 calls to our domestic violence hotline who we had to turn away because our shelter was at full capacity.
You are not the first to listen to my story. But each time, if somebody asks me, the only thing that I can say is, I was not born to be a better woman. But I was. It has been a long time. But when you ask me, I'm feeling that he is behind me right now. It seems to me that somebody is going to beat me up at any second.
He was really nice at first. He cared for me. He did things for me. He didn't hit me until I became pregnant. He kicked me on the stomach. He hit me in Vietnam, but my mother told me that he hit me because he loved me and he's jealous. And since a woman married, doesn't matter how bad the husband treats you, you still with him. And he promised to change.
I did not end that relationship. I could not, because he wanted to kill my mom and my son. The last time I was in the hospital with the head trauma, I almost died. I stayed in the hospital for 4 months. He was just a monster to me. But I had to stand that situation because of many other reasons. So I understood that many other people, it's not easy for them to come out of the situation.
After my husband threw me out, I had no money. I was experiencing a nervous breakdown and almost to a point where I wanted to commit suicide. I was basically blind, deaf, mute because of the language and the culture.
He took away all my and my son's paperwork, birth certificate, passport.
Without any knowledge about the system here, they are totally vulnerable to everything, to anything.
My son very afraid of my husband because my husband always hit him and yell at him. He told my son that if my son doesn't want to go with him, then he's gonna beat him to death. He choked me, and then he pushed me down And the landlord called police, and then police told me it's not safe for me to stay and give me the information.
Most of the folks who come to our shelter really have nowhere else to go. They don't have friends or family who can take them in when a crisis happens, and so we have worked very hard to build a sense of community in our Asian Women's Home and in all of our programs to make it a safe place for families to come.
When I come, I didn't have clothes to wear, so they even give me clothes to me and my son.
Whenever they make the decision to build their life, we will be with them step by step, day by day.
When I left, I didn't know what's gonna be my future. But when I get to the shelter staff helped me a lot. You know, they get me to get my green card and Social Security card. During the time I stay in the shelter, I learned a lot of things. My advocate took me on a bus to show me how to take bus, to go to doctor, to go to school, and to go to mental health. I learned a lot from the support group. When I was in shelter, they referred me to a parenting class. I am studying in a vocational school to do manicure and also going to ESL class. Now I'm in transitional housing program. I feel a lot more confident. I do have hope for my future. Both me and my son feel safer.
Let them talk, let them listen to other people around them who have the same story, the same situations. And then they feel that I'm not alone.
I don't know what else to say. If there wasn't this program, I don't know, what happened to me.
When I was in the most dark place, I felt like I was a plant that was drying up, and Aki was like water. They gave me life.
I hate to think about what would happen if we weren't here. I think people would lose their lives. I think families would be destroyed. I think kids would be out on the street, involved in gangs. People would be suffering from substance abuse, from mental illness. These are all things that we can treat, whether it's access to good health care, whether that's a safe place for domestic violence victims, whether that's a hot lunch for seniors. We're all in this together, and Aki can't do it alone.
I want to express my appreciation from the bottom of my heart to all the staff and all the people who've helped me at Aki. You've given me and my son a new life, completely new life. I really hope that the bright light that Aki has shown on me will continue to shine for all other people.
In Asian communities, and really in all communities, we often think that domestic violence is only physical violence. It's true that in our program, Asian Women's Home, we have seen women who have been burnt, beaten, blinded, poisoned by the individual who claims to love them. However, 25% of the cases we see, there is no physical sign. It's all emotional. And as a family member, a friend, who might be where the individual goes out to seek out for help, you might just say, it's okay. He was just raising his voice. Or you might say, it's okay, do it for the kids. Stick with it, you're married. Unfortunately, our counselors know that emotional abuse is damaging and can be more hurtful than physical violence. Around the world, 1 in 3 women have been beaten, coerced into sex, or abused during their lifetime. That figure is 1 in 7 men. So if anyone knows someone who needs help, please contact our 24-hour crisis hotline. It is available. So domestic violence, what is it? It is a pattern of power and control that the other individual, that the intimate partner wants to exert. They could be in a marriage, a partnership, a dating relationship, and it encompasses all different forms from emotional abuse, physical abuse, economic abuse, sexual abuse. It's not an isolated incident. It happens over time. One person has the desire to control the other individual. It's a learned behavior. It's not caused by genetics. It's not caused by outside influences. It's a choice, and it's found in every culture, every socioeconomic class. So domestic violence, here are the different types of abuses. Physical abuse. Sometimes we think of the broken bones, the bruises, but that throwing the phone or that breaking the chair, that's also a form of physical violence. Isolating the individual, depriving them of food and water, we have seen cases like that. Sexual abuse could be anywhere from rape, marital rape, denying contraceptives, revenge porn. Emotional abuse could be anything from name-calling, put-downs, lying to the individual, encouraging the individual to blame themselves for the violence. Economic abuse could be withholding allowance and money, access to credit cards, denying the individual to learn English or to drive so that they could be self-sufficient. Spiritual abuse could be using their religion against them, saying that it's their karma, that they deserve this, denying them to worship individuals that they, denying them freedom of worship. Legal abuse could be knowing that if they want to get that green card, then they have to listen to them. They have to obey. Or technology abuse. Some of our clients will come to us saying that they feel like they're tracked and followed and stopped. And that's because they are. Especially here in Silicon Valley, where there's so many tech professionals, a lot of the clients that we see actually face more severe technology abuse. So a lot of individuals might be asking, why aren't they leaving? Well, to be honest, the most dangerous time for a survivor is when they're trying to leave. 75% of domestic violence-related homicides happen when the individual tries to leave. That's because their perpetrator feels like they're losing control, and they'll do everything they can, including murder, to gain back that control. So these concerns are very real. The survivor could be very fearful of the relationship. They may be so isolated from their support network. They feel like they have a lack of options. That could be financially. They're still in love with the individual. They want to stay for their children. Financial dependency, with housing being so expensive here in Silicon Valley, that oftentimes people will stay for the shelter, for the finance. If they're in a same-sex relationship, the fear of being outed to their family members, to their friends, when they're not ready to come out, is also a huge fear. So as an example, since Cupertino there's over 60% of the population is Asian, I wanted to kind of put it in a cultural context. So some of the barriers that could face, for example, this Chinese community. For domestic violence, the reasons why they stay is because they have different definitions of what domestic violence is. So the community could say, he just raised his voice, it's nothing serious. It's just an injury. It's not an injury, it's just a red mark. They may have a lack of understanding of the laws because back in their home country, maybe law enforcement didn't do anything about domestic violence. Laws weren't strict enough there. And they didn't know that if they called for help here, that domestic violence is against the law. There could also be multiple perpetrators in the home. With like living with in-laws, we've seen cases where the in-laws are actually the primary perpetrators in the home, and the spouse feels like they're caught in the crossfire, and they're not sure what to do. Language barriers, cultural barriers. When individuals are new to the country, don't speak the language, don't understand the social systems, it's hard to seek out help. Conversational English does not equate to courtroom or legal English. So other common barriers can be, they want to give them another chance. And oftentimes, the clients that we serve, they come to us and they say, can you decide for me? We don't do that. We try to empower them, we give them options, and we let them make their own choice. So there's also a stigma behind domestic violence, right? It's a family issue, it's a private issue. Don't air out your dirty laundry. And with the Chinese culture, they're so ingrained in wanting to save face that a lot of times they'll just say, suck it up and swallow it. Other culturally and linguistic barriers is when they call and seek out help, they're just not sure that they're able to ask for an interpreter. So, there's also the modeled minority. With Asians, individuals really have a stigma that they believe that the Asian community is the modeled minority, where they're all going to grow up to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, really, really successful careers. They'll get all those A+, and the parents will say, why'd you get that A-? And it's a lot of the big reasons why individuals are so drawn to the Cupertino in the first place, right? You're known for your schools. So Cupertino folks need to keep up their image. Another barrier to seeking help. Let me tell you, there are legal remedies for individuals, especially if they don't have legal status here. So some of the legal resources are, there's the Violence Against Women's Act, where if an individual is married to a US citizen or a legal permanent resident, they can self-petition. There's also the U visa, as well as the T visa, if they are in a marriage where maybe they are also getting trafficked to either work some more or other types of labor. So if you suspect that anyone is experiencing domestic violence or human trafficking or getting abused, here are the 5 different agencies in Santa Clara County that can provide free and confidential services. So we have Aki Asian Women's Home. We also have Community Solutions that serves the Morgan Hill and Gilroy area. Maitri that specializes in the South Asian community. And Next Door Solutions, as well as the YWCA Silicon Valley. For survivors of sexual assault, Community Solutions and the YW are also the go-to resource here in the area. So as a community, you're probably wondering how are ways that I'm able to support a survivor? Well, when they come to you, believe them and tell them that it's not their fault. Listen to what they have to say. Avoid blaming them for saying like, why don't you just leave? Or how did you let that happen? Take their fears seriously. And then help them plan when things are calm. Wait for them to come to you. So don't try to give advice or pressure them, because on average, a survivor that comes to us, they've tried to leave the relationship 7 times before they leave for good. So I said earlier, plan when things are calm. That's the safest time. So a lot of the individuals that call us and to seek out help, we will safety plan with them at whatever stage they're at. Say they want to stay in the relationship. How do they stay safe? Say they want to plan to leave. How do they plan on doing so? And then if once they leave, how do they continue to stay safe? So all of our services are free and confidential. We have a 24-hour crisis hotline. We have a 10-bed emergency shelter. And we also have a chat system for individuals who don't feel comfortable chatting or talking to someone over the phone. They can chat with a confidential advocate. We also have support groups, as well as legal advocacy, court accompaniment. In our program, we're able to help survivors in over 13 different languages and dialects. And ACCI, as an organization, is able to support in over 40 different languages and dialects. So we do help individuals of all backgrounds, regardless of their gender, their sexual orientation, their ethnicity, their immigration status. All is welcome. So at ACCI, what are some of our programs? So Asian Women's Home is one of the programs, and other programs include our primary care. We do have a health center. We have a seniors program. We have HIV and DUI services. We even have a Center Survivors of Torture program. Our safe chat system. For survivors who want to seek out help and they want to go talk to someone in person. Well, here in Santa Clara County, we're lucky that there's 3 family justice centers. And one of the family justice centers is located in San Jose. So every Thursday from 9 to 5 at our Story Road office, right across the street from Happy Hollow Zoo, there's the Family Justice Center. So survivors are able to walk in, speak to a district attorney, file a police report, talk to a family or immigration law attorney, as well as advocates to seek out resources. And all of this is free and confidential. So on average, our shelter supports over 400 women, children, and men rebuild their lives. 48% of our clients are Asian, about 80% are male or female, and about 20% are male. Our oldest client is 71, and our youngest client is just newly born. And on average, we answer about 1,500 calls. Right, so for families who arrive at our shelter with literally nothing but the clothes on their backs, Asian Women's Home is truly a home. It's a place where individuals feel supported, and as they begin to recover, and as we look to the future of our home, I want to see some of these things continue. We want to continue providing safety and support for women, children, and men who otherwise, due to their language and cultural barriers, would have no one else to help them. We want to continue helping individuals obtain restraining orders and other legal support to prevent future abuse. And I want to continue providing education to communities so that people recognize domestic violence in their own communities, in their own homes, and to know that there's resources available. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica, for such an insightful and powerful presentation on a real topic that affects many people daily. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Miss Gina Callie to come up and talk to you about things the fire department has for you and education-wise.
Sure? Yeah. Or you want me bigger? It's fine. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. My name is Gina Callie, and I'm from the Santa Clara County Fire Department. I help manage our community risk and education department here within the department. I've been with County Fire for over 16 years, and we educate, of course, all ages, from preschool children. We're one of the only fire departments actually that are active in going out to preschool programs and educating children under the age of 5. They are one of the highest risk groups. And then we're very active in our adult and senior communities as well. And aging adults are also another high-risk group that we target, and we offer safety programs. I know it's kind of hard to read this, but I thought I would just start. On average, there's about 2,500 deaths, people who die in house fires, and this is a nationwide statistic, so this isn't Santa Clara County specific. And we're looking at about over 12,000 injuries a year, and it's shocking, more than $6.5 billion in damage. So what I'm going to talk about this evening are just some basic fire safety things that we can do that can help you remain safe in your home. The first and foremost, of course, is going to be smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms. They are the code, it is the law. Even though that is part of the law, unfortunately, we are seeing homes that may have smoke alarms, but they may not be properly maintained. And so to make sure that you are safely in your home every night is to install smoke alarms. We want them in the hallway, we want them in your bedrooms, and we want them on every level of your home. So that's for optimal protection. And then if you do any construction to your house, actually only anything over $1,000, which nowadays is not much, you are required to not only install them, but actually hardwire them as well. So smoke alarms save lives every day in this country, and I have some samples over there on the table you're more than welcome to look at. And then the other device are carbon monoxide alarms, and those went into effect quite a few years ago, and unfortunately we are still seeing homes that don't have them. Unlike smoke alarms, you want to just install one carbon monoxide alarm per level of the home. So you need multiple smoke alarms for optimal protection, but for a carbon monoxide alarm, it's just one per level of your home. And again, I have some samples over there too. And then there's combo alarms as well. If you do purchase and install combo alarms, you want to make sure those go high on the ceiling. For carbon monoxide alarms, if it's a separate unit, carbon monoxide, which is basically It's a toxic gas that's odorless. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it. And so it's called the silent killer. And it comes from appliances that are gas burning. So if you have a gas stove, if you have a furnace, if you have a gas dryer. So we have multiple sources of carbon monoxide in the home. Those alarms, you know, unfortunately, on average, about 300 people die a year from carbon monoxide poisoning, and right, one's too many. So we can do away with these just by having an alarm that can sense the presence of carbon monoxide. Because again, if you have a leak on your stove, your gas stove, you're not going to feel it. You're going to experience flu-like symptoms, which are headache, vomiting, and then eventually you're just going to pass out. Because what happens is carbon monoxide is how it survives is on oxygen, and it's going to strip you of your oxygen. So when the alarm is a functioning alarm in your home, it will determine the amount of level of carbon monoxide in the home. So a garage also, where you park your car, is another source, right? You drive your car into your garage. So if you leave an idling car in the garage, that's very dangerous. We don't ever want to do that. But if you pull your car into the garage and then you open your door to your home and you go in, some carbon monoxide is just automatically going to come in your house, but then it's going to dissipate. What the alarm's job is to do is to wait for that carbon monoxide to build. And then when it builds and it becomes more dense, then it's going to sound. So it should not just go off if there's a presence for a very short amount of time. And so installing smoke alarms and installing carbon monoxide alarms are probably two of the most important things that you can do to keep your family safe. We also have a lot of information over there at the table revolving around emergency preparedness. We offer, of course, we have a very active CERT program here in Cupertino, which is just great. We also offer the CERT Academy throughout our jurisdiction, which is 6 more cities. And then we also offer a PEP class, which is Personal Emergency Preparedness class. And that's offered once a month. We offer it twice in each of our cities every year. We also offer hands-only CPR. We offer Heart Saver CPR, which is if you need a certification. So we're very proactive in offering classes and resources throughout our communities that we serve, of course, here in Cupertino. So I welcome you to come to the table and check on some of that information that we have there. The other thing that we do, and we're very proactive, is acting as a referral source for our residents. I'm very thankful. We have a very great line personnel. So our firefighters are the ones that are working in the houses every day, and they respond to all 911 calls. And so they're our eyes and ears out in the field, if you will. And so they know that they can contact me or any staff in my office when a situation isn't right. So if there's an elderly person who consistently falls, over time, and they've fallen, 5 times in just a week, and they keep getting called out to that residence, then they'll contact me, and then what I do is I try to reach out to that resident and act as a referral source and share some resources that I'm aware of within the community that we can help. And that's just one little example, but I'm always looking for resources, and I also keep our website up to date with a lot of resources that I can actually log on in just a moment to show you. But that's the other thing. I'm very thankful for our firefighters because, again, they are eyes and ears out there. And so just as Aki just explained how wonderful their organization is, right? It's getting people to become aware of that organization. It's the same thing of what I kind of struggle with every day is trying to get people, our residents, aware of the amazing resources that we have out in the community. And so, again, I try to keep our website up to date with the resources. We're out at events like this. We have a very busy safety booth that we staff at a lot of the community events here in Cupertino and then throughout our jurisdiction. And the other last piece that I'll talk about is wildland-urban interface, which is what we call WUI, and that's preparing our residents that live in the wildland-urban interface areas, preparing their property and their homes. And I have a brochure over there about that, and we also have a lot of resources on our website it's called the program that we are putting into place now is called Ready, Set, Go, and it's an excellent program, and we have, again, a lot of resources on our website. So if you do live in those areas or you have family members that live in those areas, then there's a lot that you can do to prepare your home so you're not, you know, succumb to a potential wildland fire. So those are just some of the things that, that I wanted to talk about. And Chief Glass, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? You want to come up and say anything?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Glass, Deputy Chief of Operations for Santa Clara County Fire and the liaison for the City of Cupertino for Santa Clara County Fire Department. And I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. There's a ton of value in our public safety message and our partners with the Sheriff's Department, the domestic violence campaign that's going on, and we're happy to be here today representing the Fire Department. As Gina said, we have a ton of information over at the booths, and we encourage people to come to our website, www.sccfd.org. There's a lot of information. So in the city of Cupertino, we have three staff fire stations, a total of 5 companies. We have an engine in Cupertino, one in Monte Vista, and one in the Seven Springs area. Our hazardous materials team is based in Cupertino at the Seven Springs Fire Station as well. We also have the big ladder truck, which you guys have probably seen going around. That's for us to help access those tall buildings in the community. All of our fire engines have paramedics on it, so you're getting that first response, advanced life support in the community. It's the same level of care you would get in your home, that is same as if you walked in the front door of a hospital. So we're very happy to be able to provide that service here in the community, and with that, we're happy to take any questions.
When I dial 911 for, say, domestic violence, does the fire department necessarily respond at the same time every 911 call?
If there was a medical emergency associated with that domestic violence, the sheriffs would be notified, and we would also be responding to make sure that we were able to treat the victim as necessary. So if it was an emergency where it was an active act of violence, the sheriff's department would be notified, and the fire department and the ambulance company. Yes.
And also, if I may add, if you have relative that cannot speak English, okay, you can say, 我需要帮忙. Okay, they will transfer your calls to Mandarin speakers, Indian speakers, Vietnamese speakers. The call center is prepared to deal with all the foreign languages. Okay, so just to add to the Deputy Chief's message. Okay.
There might be a delay, but they will be able to help you.
They have that capability.
Momentito, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess 2-part question. One is, like, we probably all know, obviously, but just for Cupertino, what are the most common causes of fires in the home? And then secondly, what might be causes people wouldn't think of that are actually happening? So
the common cause of fires is going to be cooking. Cooking is the #1 cause of fire, and it's been that #1 cause year after year. Basically for 2 reasons. One is we cook on too high a heat, and it gets out of control. But the main reason is we forget about it. We leave it unattended. And so we start something on the stove, or we put something in the oven, and then we leave. We go to the store, or we fall asleep, or we get busy on the phone. But leaving cooking unattended is the #1 cause of house fires. And so there's little things that you can do, like set your cell phone timer, right? Or the easiest one is grab a spoon and keep it in your hand. So if you go and you sit down on the couch and you have a spoon in your hand, oh my gosh, I gotta go and get that item off the stove. Or stick an oven mitt on your hand. And I mean, you'd be surprised. It sounds really silly, but it's a really quick trick to help remind that you have something cooking on the stove. If you do have a cooking fire, then people panic, #1, because they see the flames, and then what they want to do is they want to rush that pan to where? They want to rush it to the sink because, right, we need to get water on that fire. What happens when you do that is you run the risk of burning yourself. You're going to burn, you know, the pan itself. The handle may not be on fire, but it's really hot. So it's best just to leave it there. And if you can try to suffocate the fire with a lid or with a cookie sheet, then that's great. If not, your next job is to get out of the house immediately and call 911. Our response time is really quick. So it's anywhere from 4 to about 8 minutes. We actually pride ourselves on trying to respond really quickly, and we're actually timed at every single increment of an emergency call. So as soon as somebody calls 911, the clock starts. And then as soon as that dispatcher releases that call, another clock starts. And then we have 60 seconds to exit the station. So every bit of that 911 call is timed, and we are held to standards. And we beat those standards. So the other trend that we're seeing here in Cupertino is a delay in calling 911. And all I can say is that really, again, if there's any potential that you might have a fire, please do not delay in calling 911. You run the risk of personal injury. You also run the risk of creating more damage to the home, right? Every second that fire is doubling. And so the longer you wait to call to activate the EMS system to get us there to arrive, right, fire is doubling. And so that is a trend here that we are seeing in Cupertino, and I'm not sure what's best to try to combat that. All I know is when we teach our safety programs, when we're out and teaching adults and seniors, we are talking about 911 and the importance of not delaying and calling 911. So if you can help us by spreading that word, is making sure, call 911 when you need us. And it's not just for a fire, of course, right? As Captain Glass explained, you know, we go on every single 911 medical call as well. And we have a paramedic on every one of our crews. And so every medical call, any emergency call that comes into 911 dispatch, we are going to be dispatched to that if it's in this area. And so we will be there to help you. So again, not just for fire, but for anything. If you're not feeling right physically, you know, tightness in your chest, you know, don't be afraid to call. Again, I've been doing this a long time, and you know, I talk to seniors who will lay on the floor for 7 hours because, quote, they didn't want to wake the firefighters up. And, you know, that's not okay. We get into this job because we want to help people. And so don't ever feel bad if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and, you know, you feel tightness in your chest and you're like, oh, but I just want them to sleep. Don't do that. You know,
call us.
Call us.
Happy to come out.
Yeah, we want to come out. We want to help. And even if it's nothing, by the time we get there and maybe it was a gas bubble, who knows, right? That's okay. We'll check you out and pack up our stuff and we'll go back to the station. That's why we're here.
Yeah, we're very happy to come out and do that. The crews that were here tonight displaying the fire apparatus, those are the ones that would be there tonight if you called 911. And they would be just as happy as they were to come to this as they would be to come to your house in the middle of the night and help you out. And just to touch real quick on response times here in the city of Cupertino, we're really proud of it. We're under 5 minutes on all of our calls. So that's pretty good. On average, we're shooting around 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It's my job each month to report that to the Public Safety Commission, and I'm always very happy to do that when we hit the mark. So we're looking at about 2,000 calls per year out of the Cupertino station, about 1,500 out of Monte Vista, and about 1,500 out of Seven Springs. So we're providing a good amount of service to the community, and we're really proud of that. Thank you very much.
Did I answer all your questions?
Any other questions?
Oh, we got more. Perfect.
So what's the latest on Text 911?
Text to 911. So right now we're researching our replacement for our computer-aided dispatching system. So currently the computer-aided dispatch system that we have now is not capable of receiving text to 911, but it's in process. And so I would say conservative 1 to 2 years, probably looking at about 18 months by the time that we have a CAD capable of receiving text to 911. Now, so there are some advances to bridge that between today and now, and we are exploring those options. We recently merged with County Communications, is now a member of the County Fire Department, and so we've been working with them, and they've been making great strides at bringing the latest and greatest technology to specifically the dispatching and call-taking component. So your local PSAP then sends a public safety answering point, then brings that call into the communications dispatch center where we're dispatching both county fire, the sheriff's department, and county EMS from one facility within the county. So we're pretty happy to have that capability, and like I said, as technology continues to evolve, we're trying to stay ahead of that curve, but as government is, that's a little bit behind the latest and greatest, but we're definitely looking at it, and it is on our radar. Great question.
Speaking of a ladder on your engine, how high does it go? Because there's a talk also in Cupertino to have much higher high-rises. So how tall can you go?
So currently the ladder truck that we have now reaches 100 feet. And so typically most of the building construction is designed to exit people out of the building using the systems that are in place. So sprinkler systems, early alarm, early activation, stairwells that are pressurized to keep the smoke out, and then dedicated stairwells for evacuation. Those are all built in through the fire safety code that we've adopted here in County Fire and in the city of Cupertino. So all those, the high-rise buildings, basically a high-rise is anything greater than 4 or 5 stories. It's considered a mid-rise if it's less than that. The ladder truck can reach to all of those. It's not going to reach every building. As you see, like in San Francisco, their ladder trucks are also 100 feet. We're kind of limited on the construction capability of the truck. The tallest truck that we have in County Fire is 103 feet, and it's in Los Gatos right now, and that's just based on, it's a newer version. We are in the process of speccing or building out a newer ladder truck for the city of Cupertino. That's probably a 1.5-year process. And then that ladder will also be within that 100-foot range again. So anything above 100 feet, we'll use the building systems to protect the occupants. Okay.
And just so you know, the apparatus that has the big ladder is called a fire truck, and the ones that don't have the ladder are called fire engines. Any other questions? Wow, we're getting off easy tonight, huh?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Commissioner Varshna from the Teen Commission present? Okay, then right now we will move into a portion where Mayor Darcy Paul will deliver closing remarks.
So before we go into more general Q&A, there were just a couple of thank yous that I wanted to add. Of course, thank you to Deputy Chief Glass as well as Officer Callie for coming out from County Fire. And I wanted to mention our staff liaison, Deputy City Manager Jackie Guzman, who's done such a capable job over the years of being the liaison to the Public Safety Commission and being able to bring this particular event and many other public safety issues to the forefront of our community. And also to wish you very good luck in about a month when you move across Homestead to Sunnyvale. But I know that we'll be transitioning very well with Clara Francavilla of OES in Cupertino. So that was pretty much my closing. I neglected a couple of thank yous. So thank you very much for coming out this evening. Really greatly appreciate the attentiveness. If there are general questions, of course, of any of the presenters tonight or other components of the community, please feel free to ask those. And yeah, I'll give it back to Andy and Rob and Yvonne. Thanks much.
So I guess first of all, if I can ask everybody, please stand up. Let's give a standing ovation to our public safety officers and fire department, and Laura Lee for the block leader program, our neighborhood watch, Claire for our OES office, and Ken Erickson, who's hiding back there. Ken, please come over. Ken, please come over. Okay, and also please give our big thanks to the people working in the background, our camera crew, our video crew, and people still working in the City of Cupertino office for bringing this alive tonight to all the residents of Cupertino. So I guess now we're open for general Q&A, and also while we're doing the Q&A, please feel free to visit each of the booths. The fire department will demonstrate to you what kind of auditing they can do for your house for free. the deputy will show you their wonderful K9 as well as their specialties, and go to visit Laura for the block leader program as well as the neighborhood watch. And also we're open for Q&A if you have any questions.